Most token launches fail because of one thing: liquidity. In most tokens, there's not enough liquidity at launch, exactly when it's needed the most. And that's exactly what Aerodrome Ignition is trying to fix. But the real question is, does it actually solves the liquidity problem or just shifts it somewhere else? Let's break it down properly in today's video. Before understanding Aerodrome Ignition, you need to understand the core problem. Most token launches today follow the same pattern: low initial liquidity, high expectation, and a lot of sell pressure right at the launch. What happens then? Price becomes extremely volatile, market can't absorb the sell pressure, and price discovery becomes inefficient. Even worse, liquidity is not where it's needed. At launch, you need deep liquidity around the trading price, but most launches fail to provide that. And that's exactly where Aerodrome Ignition comes in. Aerodrome Ignition is a DEX-first token launch model built on Aerodrome, the largest DEX on base. Instead of paying market makers for rented liquidity or relying on centralized exchange listings for accessibility, projects directly launch their token on Aerodrome and use token incentives to bootstrap liquidity from day one. The idea is simple. Instead of buying or renting liquidity, you bootstrap it through incentives. And because Aerodrome is integrated with OKX and Coinbase, your token becomes directly tradable through in-app DEX trading from day one. Now let's understand how the Aerodrome Ignition process actually works. First, the project creates a liquidity pool on Aerodrome, usually pairing the token with USDC, Ethereum, or AERO. Then they deposit a small percentage of their token supply as incentives, typically around 3 to 10%. These incentives are not for traders, they are for AERO voters. Before we move forward, you need to understand how Aerodrome's model works. On Aerodrome, 100% of the swap fees generated from all of the pools goes to AERO voters, not liquidity providers. AERO holders can lock their tokens to get AERO, and AERO gives them voting power. Every week, Aerodrome emits new AERO tokens, and AERO holders decide which pools get those emissions. So what do LPs earn? They earn 100% of the AERO emissions, nothing else. So now, here's what happens. The project offers incentives to AERO voters. In return, voters allocate their voting power to that pool. That brings new AERO emissions to that pool. And because emissions are flowing in the pool, liquidities come in to provide liquidity. That's how liquidity gets bootstrapped. Now let's understand the timeline. Aerodrome works in epochs. Each epoch lasts 7 days. At the start of the epoch, AERO voters vote for the pools. During the epoch, LPs provide liquidity to earn emissions. At the end of the epoch, rewards are distributed. Projects can add more incentives anytime for AERO voters. Most projects allocate 3 to 5% of the supply in the first week and much smaller amounts in the later weeks. At launch, liquidity builds very fast because the incentives and emissions are high, but that liquidity is not permanent. It only lasts as long as incentives are attractive. Once incentives drop, liquidity starts leaving. In most of the cases, 50 to 95% of the liquidity leaves when incentives are stopped or reduced. So what actually keeps the liquidity after the incentives? Only one thing: swap fee. If your pool generates strong trading activity, the swap fee becomes attractive. And AERO voters will continue voting for your pool because they earn that swap fee. And LPs will continue providing the liquidity because emissions are still flowing to the pool. Everything here depends on opportunity cost. Voters will choose your pool only if incentives are good or fees are good, ideally both. If neither exists, liquidity leaves. Now let's look at the advantages of launching your token through Aerodrome Ignition. First, better ROI compared to traditional token distribution. Instead of giving tokens to centralized exchanges for marketing or trading competitions or giving airdrops to farmers, you are using tokens to build real liquidity. Those tokens create depth in the market instead of just getting dumped. Second, access to Coinbase and OKX, which means direct access to large user bases without paying any listing fee. Although your token is only available through their in-app DEX trading feature, but even that level of access matters a lot. Third, the self-compounding liquidity flywheel. If your token has strong trading activity and good protocol-owned liquidity, swap fee can sustain the system. And the model continues working even after the incentives are reduced or stopped. Fourth, liquidity when it matters most. At the TGE, volatility is highest, and that's where you need the deepest liquidity. Aerodrome Ignition solves this problem very well. Now the downsides. First, it is only available on Base. If your users are on another chain, launching your token on Base might not make sense. Second, you have to give away a meaningful portion of your token supply, usually around 5 to 10% in total. If incentives are not attractive, you won't get enough voting power. And without votes, you won't get liquidity. Also, these tokens are fully unlocked, which creates sell pressure. So while incentives help bootstrap liquidity, they come at a real cost. Third, it's not a permanent solution for liquidity. If your token doesn't generate meaningful trading activity and doesn't produce enough swap fee, you have to keep supplying the incentives in order to maintain the liquidity. And that's not sustainable at all. If you are launching on Aerodrome Ignition, here are the key things you need to get right. First, launch at a realistic valuation. Your valuation should match the actual demand your token can sustain. If you are launching at an unrealistically high FDV, the incentives you are giving out will create heavy sell pressure. And if liquidity is not deep enough to absorb that sell pressure, the price will collapse. Second, maintain a healthy float at TGE. Ideally, at least 10 to 25% circulating supply. If float is too low, there won't be enough trading activity. And without trading activity, there are no meaningful swap fee, which means liquidity won't sustain after incentives end. Third, use concentrated liquidity. Most projects use full range liquidity, which is inefficient. Instead, use concentrated liquidity strategies. You can do this through traditional market makers or specialized on-chain solutions like Arrakis. Concentrated liquidity increases fee generation per dollar deployed, which helps retain LPs even after incentives drop. Fourth, don't rely only on incentives. Use incentives to bootstrap liquidity at launch, but after that, focus on building real trading activity. Because that's what generates swap fee, and swap fee is what sustains liquidity long term. So the key idea is simple. Use Aerodrome Ignition to bootstrap liquidity and momentum, but sustainability has to come from real demand. If you're only using it to make hype at the launch or absorb early sell pressure, then after incentives end, liquidity leaves, sell pressure continues, and the token dies. No doubt, Aerodrome Ignition is a strong token launch model. If executed the right way, it can help you bootstrap deep liquidity at TGE and sustain it after incentives. But it's not for every project. It works best for tokens with real utility, strong demand, and consistent trading activity. Because those are the only things that can generate swap fee and keep the system running. It doesn't work well for hype-driven tokens, low float launches, or tokens without real usage. Because once incentives drop, liquidity disappears. So the model is not magic. It doesn't guarantees token success. It simply gives you a better and more decentralized way to launch your token. What happens after that still depends on your product and token design. If you found this video useful, consider subscribing, liking the video, and sharing your thoughts in the comment section. This is Web3 Jatin signing off. See you in the next one. Till then, keep building.